My name is Athena Marsh, and I'm 33 years old. Last April, my mom took my 3-year-old daughter to the mall and lost her for almost 2 hours because she was busy buying birthday gifts for my sister's kids. Mall security found my little girl crying alone, 20 feet from the exit doors. Nobody told me. I found out a month later from something hidden in my daughter's coat pocket. And when I finally asked my mother about it, her answer never changed. She was fine. Stop overreacting. So one night I made a single phone call. Within minutes, my phone started lighting up, and it didn't stop until the screen said 68 missed calls. By midnight, my whole family was standing on my front porch. What I said through that doorway, and what it cost me, is the part of this story I need you to hear. Because I spent 30 years being the reliable one, the quiet one, the daughter who never made anything a thing. This is about the night I finally did the math. Welcome back to Calm Drama Stories, where the quiet ones in the family finally do their accounting out loud. If you've ever been the reliable one nobody noticed until you stopped, this story is going to feel very familiar. Drop a comment below and be sure to subscribe. Let me show you my life the way it looked last spring. I'm a CPA at a small firm in Fort Wayne, Indiana. April is my Super Bowl. 12-hour days, cold coffee, a desk stacked with other people's shoeboxes. My husband Dan sells industrial equipment, which means airports, which meant that week he was in Denver. Our daughter Lily was 3. Panda phase, deep in it, dragged a stuffed one named Bo everywhere by the ear. And then there's my family. My mom, Sandra, 61, widowed 6 years now, lives 15 minutes away. My sister Vanessa, 36, 10 minutes from mom, 2 kids, Cooper, 6, and Madison, 4. On paper we're close. In practice, I have a job title in this family that nobody says out loud. I'm the strong one. I do the taxes. 9 returns a year. Every aunt and cousin, free. Every spring on top of my paid work. I host the holidays. I drive mom to her appointments because Vanessa's schedule is always, mysteriously, on fire. When my dad died 6 years ago, I planned the funeral while Vanessa grieved too hard to help, and I'm not being sarcastic. That's genuinely how the family tells it. Nobody in my family is cruel. I want that on the record. Nobody sat down and voted to make me the staff. It happened the way interest compounds. Quietly, a little every year, while everyone's looking somewhere else. And where they were looking was Vanessa. In my family, being reliable is a full-time job. The benefits package is invisibility. I'd made my peace with that, or told myself I had, right up until the invisibility started transferring to my daughter. Because that's the part nobody warns the strong ones about. Your discount gets inherited. You could audit my family in one hallway. My mother's house has a photo wall going up the stairs, and it's beautiful, and it's a ledger. Cooper's first steps, framed. Cooper's kindergarten diploma, framed. Madison as a pumpkin. Madison as a sunflower. Madison mid-sneeze, framed. 8 by 10. Somewhere near the thermostat there's one picture of Lily, a little out of focus, taken at somebody else's party. I used to tell myself I was imagining the difference, so one bored evening I actually counted the frames. I stopped counting when the answer got embarrassing. Madison's 4th birthday last year. Mom showed up with gift bags it took 2 trips to carry, plus a cake she'd special ordered. Lily's 3rd, a month later. A card. 4 days late. With a 20 in it. And look, grandmothers are allowed favorites in small ways. Everybody says so. Every advice column says so. What made it something else was the explanation, because my mother always had one, and it was always the same one. Delivered warmly, hand on my arm. Vanessa needs the help, honey. You're the strong one. There it is. The family motto, as applied to me since roughly the 3rd grade. It sounds like a compliment. It functions like an invoice. The strong one doesn't need the extra gift, the extra call, the extra hour. The strong one provides those things. And here's the moment I can't unremember, the one that started all my quiet arithmetic. Lily, 3 years old at Easter, walking a toy over to Madison and handing it away before anyone even asked her to. Already fluent. Already learning that in this family, some kids are the customers and some kids are the till. I watched her do it and felt something in my chest file itself under later. Later came in April. I want to be clear about something, because the internet loves to ask why the mother didn't see it coming. I saw plenty coming. I just didn't see this. My mother had canceled on Lily twice that year, once the morning of because Vanessa needed emergency babysitting for a hair appointment, and once because Cooper had a game and, quote, all hands on deck. I noticed. I adjusted. That's what accountants do. You don't argue with a pattern, you build around it. So I built. Lily had full-time daycare at Little Sprouts, which cost more than my first car payment, every single month. Behind that, I had a backup sitter, Kayla, a college kid 2 streets over, sweet, certified in CPR, cheap only by comparison. Behind Kayla, I had Dan, and behind Dan, I had me, and my mother was not load-bearing anywhere in that structure. Not because I thought she'd ever put Lily in danger. I want to be honest. That thought never once crossed my mind. I kept her out of the rotation because I was tired of Lily being the appointment that could always be moved. There's a difference between expecting neglect and budgeting for disappointment. I was budgeting for disappointment. As for money, since we're doing full disclosure, Dan and I were fine, but not cushioned. I'd gotten my CPA at night while Lily was a baby. There were still loans with my name on them. April wasn't optional for us. Tax season was the roof over the year, and that particular April I had 31 unfiled returns and a firm of 4 people. I'm telling you all of this so you understand the next part properly. When it finally happened, it didn't happen because I was careless. It happened because every careful thing I'd built failed in the same 48 hours, and the only door left standing was the one I'd been quietly locking for years. Then came April 13th. April 13th was a Monday, 2 days before the filing deadline. At 6:40 a.m., Little Sprout sent the text, "No working parent survives. Closed today, burst water main. We apologize for the inconvenience." I called Kayla before I'd finished reading it. Kayla had finals. Actual, scheduled, university finals. And the apology in her voice was real. Dan was in Denver until Thursday. I sat at my kitchen counter with a bagel I never ate, running the bracket. Take Lily to the office. 4 accountants, 2 phone lines, a paper shredder, 11 hours. Stay home. 31 returns, 31 families, some of them counting on refunds to fix actual cars and actual teeth. And while I was sitting there, my phone rang, and it was my mother, who had heard about the daycare thing from the neighborhood Facebook group before I'd even finished my coffee. She offered. I want that on the record, too. I didn't ask. She offered, and she offered specifics, which soothed me, because specifics are my love language. We'll get her spring shoes at Westgate, she said. Lunch at the food court, the little train ride if she's good, and straight home for her nap. Shoes, lunch, straight home. I stood in my kitchen and did the thing I do, the cost benefit, and every column said yes. It was one day. It was shoe shopping. Whatever my mother's math was between her grandkids, it had only ever shown up as smaller gifts and shorter visits. An unfairness. Never a hazard. You don't skip from a late birthday card to a missing child on any spreadsheet I know how to read. I said, "Thank you, Mom. Seriously, thank you." When I buckled Lily's car seat into my mother's Buick, Mom's phone was face up in the cup holder, and it lit up twice before I even got the chest clip done. Both times, the screen said Vanessa. Here's what April 13th looked like from my side of town, which is to say, here's what nothing looks like while your world is quietly having a hole burned in it. I texted at 11. How's my girl? Thumbs up emoji, fast. I texted at 1. Did the shoes fit? Nothing. At 2:30. Everything okay? Nothing. At 3:15 the phone finally buzzed. Sorry, honey, phone died. All good. Home soon. I remember being annoyed for exactly 1 minute, And then a client called about a 1099 and I went back under. That's the guilt I still carry, by the way, and I've decided to carry it honestly instead of pretending it isn't there. My kid needed me at 1 o'clock, and at 1 o'clock I was explaining estimated payments to a man with a boat. I got to Mom's at 5. Lily was asleep on the couch, and even asleep she looked wrong. Face puffy the way kids get when they've cried themselves empty, both arms wrapped around Bo the panda in a headlock. My mother was bright as a showroom. "Best day ever," she said. Worn herself right out at the play area, bless her. The back seat of the Buick was full of glossy gift bags, big ones, tissue paper, the whole production. And I remember registering, in the dumb way you notice things before you understand them, that none of the bags looked like a shoebox. I asked if the shoes fit. Mom said they didn't find any she liked. You know how 3-year-olds are. Lily didn't wake up on the drive home. She didn't wake up when I carried her in. At 9 o'clock that night, she sat straight up in her toddler bed and screamed. Not a bad dream fuss, a sound I'd never heard my child make. And when I got there, she was staring at the door, and she wouldn't let go of my shirt until she fell asleep inside my elbow. First entry in a new ledger. I just didn't know it yet. The next 2 weeks, my daughter was a different kid, and the difference had a shape I couldn't name yet. She'd been potty trained since Christmas. The bed was wet twice that week. Drop off at daycare. Reopened Tuesday. Pipes fixed. Went from a kiss on the head to a full-body cling, her fingers hooked into my collar like carabiners. She refused, absolutely refused, to walk into the grocery store. And I mean planted heels, back-arched refusal, at the automatic doors specifically. I stood in a parking lot holding 30 pounds of shaking child and told myself kids have phases. That's what everyone tells you. That's what I told me. Then one night I was folding laundry outside her door, and I heard her talking to Bo the panda in the dark, in that tiny narrating voice 3-year-olds use for their stuffed animals when they think no one's listening. She said, "Grandma went away." Just that. Grandma went away. I stood in the hallway with a towel in my hands and my heart going like a flagged transaction. When I came in and asked her gently, "Hey, Bug, where did Grandma go?" She did something that broke me worse than crying. She put her hand over her own mouth. "It's a secret game," she said, through her fingers. And she would not say another word. Not that night. Not the next morning. And if I pressed, she'd get wet-eyed and shaky and reach for the panda. So I stopped pressing, because I refused to make my kid the crime scene. But I want you to sit where I sat. My 3-year-old came home from a day of shoe shopping afraid of automatic doors and loudspeakers, wetting the bed, keeping a secret she'd been assigned. Something happened on April 13th. Everyone who'd been there was either 3 years old, sworn to secrecy, or lying to my face about the phone dying. So I did what you're supposed to do. I went to the source, politely. No ambush. I stopped by Mom's on a Sunday with banana bread, hostage negotiation via baked goods, a family tradition, and after the small talk I said it as lightly as I could carry it. "Mom, did something happen at the mall?" Lily's been off since that day, scared of doors, scared of the loudspeaker at Kroger. She talks about a secret. My mother did not pause. I want that noted for the record, because I've replayed this conversation maybe 200 times. She did not pause the way people pause when they're deciding what to say. The script was already loaded. "Oh, honey, she was fine. She got a little whiny at the play area. I got her a pretzel. She perked right up. You know how dramatic she gets." And then, patting my arm, the diagnosis. "You're working yourself to death this time of year, sweetheart. When you're run down, you go looking for problems." I drove home telling myself maybe a phase, maybe a bad cartoon, maybe daycare. Accountants distrust maybes, but daughters are amateurs at auditing their own mothers. You want the numbers to balance so badly you'll round in her favor for decades. And while I was busy rounding, the family group chat did what it always does. Somebody, Aunt Carla probably, had heard I'd been asking questions, and the chat bloomed with little support messages for Mom. "Sandra, you're a saint with those grandbabies. Kids that age make things up. My Tommy swore a moose lived in our garage. Nobody named me, nobody had to. The chat was a bulletin board and the notice said, "The reliable one is being difficult." My mother had gotten there first, the way she always gets there first, softly, without a single checkable fact, and I hadn't even accused her of anything yet. That was the week I stopped asking questions out loud. If you've ever been the one your family calls only when they need something and doubts the second you need to be heard, keep watching. Because what I found zipped inside my daughter's coat pocket weeks later turned my mother's little whiny at the play area into a 2-hour paper trail with timestamps. If you've ever been the invisible reliable one, tell me about it in the comments. And subscribe, because the midnight part of this story, the part with my entire family on my porch, is worth staying for. Since I couldn't ask my mother and couldn't interrogate a 3-year-old, I did the only thing left. I observed, and I wrote it down. There's a notebook in my kitchen junk drawer that used to hold grocery lists, and by the end of that month it held a different kind of list. April 20th. Kroger. Automatic doors. Refused. Carried her in. Shaking. April 22nd. Target run. Abandoned in the parking lot. Wouldn't leave the car. April 24th. Daycare called. Lily cried at nap time, said she wanted to check that Mommy was still in the building. April 26th was the one that reorganized my spine. We were at the pharmacy, tiny store, no crowds. She was doing okay. And then the overhead speaker crackled on, some pharmacist paging a manager, totally routine, and my daughter dropped to a crouch and put both hands over her ears and howled. Not startled, toddler crying, air raid crying. The pharmacist apologized like it was somehow her fault, and I carried Lily out. And in the car, I sat there with my hands on the wheel, not driving, doing what I do with any messy pile of data, sorting it. Doors, speakers, stores, being somewhere loud and big without a hand on her. My kid wasn't afraid of phases. She was afraid of a place, a specific category of place, with automatic doors and overhead pages, and every trigger on my list lived under one roof with a food court in the middle of it. I didn't have proof of anything. What I had was a pattern, and I'm a woman who has built a whole life on the belief that patterns are just facts that haven't finished arriving. Her preschool teacher pulled me aside that Friday. Kind, careful. Has anything changed at home? And I heard myself say the sentence I'd been avoiding. Something happened, I said. I just don't know what yet. Meanwhile, I kept quietly pulling threads on the official story, the way you'd work a return that smells wrong. No accusations, just cross-checks. My mother, in passing, week 1. We ate lunch at home first, then went out. My daughter, unprompted, week 2. Apropos of a pretzel cart on TV, I had the big pretzel. When Beau was scared. A 3-year-old's testimony is confetti, I know that. But confetti falls from somewhere. Then, there was the chair. Lily has a thing now about cold chairs. Won't sit on the metal ones at the ice cream place. Touches a chair with one finger first like she's checking a stove. The cold chair, she said once, at bedtime, mid-drift, and slid under before I could ask. My mother's version had no pretzel, no chair, no crying, no anything. A smooth day with a whiny patch, buffed and detailed like a used car. Dan came home from Denver that Thursday, and I laid it all out on the kitchen table after Lily was down. The notebook, the triggers, the pretzel, the secret game. My husband is a good man, and I watched him believe me, genuinely believe me, and then reach, in the same breath, for the family-sized fire extinguisher. Maybe something small happened and your mom's embarrassed, he said. She's 61, babe. It's your mom. Do we want a war over a bad afternoon? Notice the accounting in that sentence. The cost of a war got billed to me. The cost of a bad afternoon got billed to a 3-year-old. I didn't have the language for that yet, so I just said I wasn't declaring war. I was reconciling accounts. He squeezed my hand and went to bed, and I sat up with the notebook. In accounting, when the numbers won't reconcile, you stop asking the numbers. You go find the receipts. The receipts found me first, actually, at Cooper's 7th birthday party. First Saturday of May, Vanessa's backyard. I went because Lily loves Cooper. He's a sweet kid. None of this is the kid's fault. And because skipping it would have cost me a month of group chat martyrdom. And there, on the gift table, was April 13th. Gift wrapped. The bags. The same glossy bags I'd seen in the Buick's backseat, plus reinforcements. A remote control monster truck. A Lego set the size of a microwave, gears stacked like a prize display. Grandma went all out, Vanessa announced to the yard, one arm around Mom. She shopped for hours to find the right Lego, didn't you, Mom? Hours. She said it with love. She said it like a brag. My mother laughed and did an aw shucks wave, and I stood by the fence holding a paper plate, doing subtraction in public. Shoes, lunch, straight home. That was the plan I'd been quoted. Phone died. Home soon. That was the midday alibi. And now, she shopped for hours. For a Lego set. On a day when the only child in her care was 3, and the only errand was shoes. You want to know the exact moment this stopped being a worried mom's hunch? It was there, between the bounce house and the veggie tray. So I ran one small test, because I am my job. I drifted over, complimented the haul, and asked, light as helium, hey, whatever happened with Lily's shoes that day? What size did you end up trying? My mother's face did something I had never seen it do in 33 years. It buffered. Half a second, maybe less, a screen finding its next slide. Then, oh, that place never has her size, and she turned to refill the lemonade like the sentence had ended itself. There was no size. There were no shoes. There were hours. I tried the soft road one more time because 30 years of training doesn't uninstall itself in a week. I called my mother that Sunday and offered her the deal every fixer offers. Total amnesty for information. Mom, I'm not mad, I said, which was aspirational bookkeeping, but I need to know what happened, whatever it was, because Lily's struggling and I can't help her blind. Just tell me the whole day and it stays between us. What I got back was not the whole day. What I got back was a sermon, with 2 readings. Reading 1. Gratitude. Do you know what I gave up to raise you girls, and I offer 1 day of babysitting and get treated like a criminal? Reading 2. Comparison. Vanessa never talks to me this way. Vanessa appreciates me, and before I'd even hung up, the second front opened. My sister. Incoming text. No punctuation. The way she fights. Mom watched your kid all day for free, and you're interrogating her. Do you hear yourself? Some people would be grateful to have a mother like ours. Some people. There's a whole tax code in that phrase. That night, I sat on the edge of the tub while Lily's bathwater ran and understood, with accountant clarity, that the soft road didn't go anywhere and never had. It wasn't a road. It was a treadmill. And I'd been on it since the 3rd grade, keeping the peace at a loss and calling it love. My mother wasn't going to volunteer the truth. My sister was going to man the artillery. The family was going to hold the chorus. Fine. Noted. Reclassified. In my business, when a client won't produce records and keeps amending the story, you don't beg harder. You audit. And an audit doesn't need anyone's blessing. It just needs source documents. I didn't know it yet, but the source document was already in my house, zipped in a pink coat pocket, at the bottom of the closet, being kept secret by the smallest person I know. I want to be honest about the low point because every one of you watching has stood in it. Mid-May, no proof. Family chorus warmed up, husband gently suggesting peace, and me exhausted enough to consider the easy ledger. Write off the whole thing as a phase. Take the loss. Keep the family. There was an actual Tuesday night where I sat with my notebook and thought, close the file, Athena. Kids bounce back. Thanksgiving is coming. And then Wednesday happened. Target. After work. Quick trip for diaper cream and a birthday card. Lily was having a brave day, walking on her own, one hand in mine, narrating panda facts. We made it just past the automatic doors, and the overhead system popped on. Team member to guest services. That's all it said. My daughter dropped my hand, crouched down on the polished concrete of a Target entryway, covered both ears and screamed, "Mama," with me standing right there, touching her. She screamed for me while holding my hand, because wherever that loudspeaker took her, I wasn't in it. A nice older woman stopped and asked if we were okay, and I heard myself say, "She got lost once." And the sentence hit my own ears like a verdict. I didn't shop. I carried her out, buckled her in, got in the driver's seat and looked at my kid in the mirror, flushed, hiccuping, clutching Bo. And the tired thing in me stood up and put its jacket on. Some files you don't get to close, because the file is a person, and she's 3, and her whole testimony is a secret she's too small to keep and too scared to tell. "Okay," I said out loud, to nobody, in a Target parking lot. "Okay, we're doing this the thorough way." That night was bath night. Every parent knows the archaeology of a toddler's coat pocket: raisins, a rock that is somehow special, half a crayon. Lily's pink spring coat had been through the wash pile twice since April and somehow kept dodging it, and that night, running the bath, I finally grabbed it off the closet floor, did the reflexive pocket check, and felt something stiff behind the zipper. I fished it out. It was a paper wristband, the tough, tear-proof kind, folded twice, yellow. Printed on it, in block letters, was found child, Westgate Commons Security, and under that, a handwritten scrawl, logged 1:12 p.m. I stood there with the bathwater running and the whole month rearranged itself around a strip of yellow paper. Found child. Logged. My daughter had been processed. Somewhere in that mall there was an office with a clipboard, and on April 13th at 12 minutes past 1, a stranger in a uniform had buckled this around my baby's wrist because nobody who loved her knew where she was. Lily patted in for her bath and saw it in my hand, and her whole little face closed like a shop gate. "Grandma said keep it secret," she whispered. "It's a secret game." And then, hugging Bo, the sentence from the hallway, the one she'd been carrying alone all month. Grandma went away. I did not cry in front of her. I gave her the world's most normal bath, narrated the panda facts, tucked her in twice. Then I sat at the kitchen table with that wristband flat in front of me, the way I'd sit with a forged signature, and felt something I can only describe as terrible relief. My kid wasn't broken. My kid was accurate. Every door, every loudspeaker, every cold chair. Accurate. And here's the thing about being the family accountant instead of the family favorite. I knew exactly what a logged timestamp meant. It meant a log. Security offices keep logs, and logs have more than one line. I called Westgate Commons the next morning from my car in the office parking lot, 8:40, coffee untouched. The security office transferred me to the shift supervisor, a woman named Marcy, with the voice of somebody who has seen every kind of Tuesday. I gave her the date and my daughter's name, and I heard keys clatter, and then I heard the tone of her voice change into careful. "Yes, ma'am. April 13th. I have it right here." "Are you the mother?" I said I was, and that I'd found the wristband, and that until last night nobody had told me my daughter was ever lost. Marcy was quiet a second, and I heard her decide to be a human being about it. Then she read me the log, entry by entry, and I wrote every line into my notebook in my own handwriting, which I never once needed to reread because it printed itself directly onto the inside of my skull. 1:12 p.m. Female toddler found crying, unaccompanied, east entrance corridor by the exit doors. No guardian in sight. Brought to the office. Wristband issued. 1:15 and every 15 minutes after. Overhead pages for the guardian of a female child, age approximately 3. No response. 1:58 p.m. Per lost child policy, police contacted on the non-emergency line. A child unclaimed that long. That's protocol, ma'am. We don't have discretion on that, and I'm glad we don't. 3:09 p.m. Guardian arrived at the office. I asked, level as I could manage, what the guardian said. Another small silence, the sound of a woman choosing accuracy over comfort. She said the little one must have wandered off, ma'am. She had shopping bags with her. I looked out my windshield at a hedge for a while. My mother's 10 minutes had a paper trail, and the paper trail said 2 hours. On my lunch break, I drove to Westgate and signed for copies. Incident Report WG-0413-07, parent of the minor, 2 forms of ID, initial here and here. Marcy walked me back to the security office to do the paperwork, and I understood the moment I stepped in that I was standing inside my daughter's nightmares. Fluorescent light, a big window onto the corridor where the world walks by without stopping, a row of metal folding chairs against the wall, cold chairs, where a 3-year-old sat for the better part of 2 hours, watching a door, listening to her own description go out over the loudspeaker every 15 minutes. The cold chair, the pages, the doors. My kid had been telling me the whole story for a month, in the only copies she had. The report itself was 2 pages, typed, stapled, and it read like all incident reports read, flat on purpose, which somehow makes it worse. Officer L. Reyes responding. Child located by staff member near east exit doors. Child in visible distress. And then the line I had to put down and come back to. Child asked repeatedly for mama. Not for grandma. Not for the person who'd brought her and lost her. For me, from a metal chair in a mall office. For 2 hours, while I explained estimated taxes to a man with a boat, and my phone said all good. Marcy watched me finish reading and said quietly, off any script. For what it's worth, we see grandparents lose track for 5 minutes all the time. 2 hours is not losing track. I thanked her. I put the report in my bag between client folders, where the truth apparently commutes now. I sat in my car for 1 long minute. Then I drove to my mother's house, because the audit had reached the interview stage. My mother was watering the porch ferns when I pulled up, and she brightened at me like a woman with no unfiled business in the world. Kitchen table. Iced tea appeared, unasked, hospitality as armor. I took out the report and the wristband and set them side by side facing her, squared to the table edge, and said, Mom, I need you to walk me through April 13th, because Westgate Security walked me through it this morning. And then I just read the timeline. No adjectives. The way I'd present findings to a client. Found crying alone at 1:12 by the exit doors. Paged every 15 minutes. Police called at 1:58 per policy. Guardian arrived at 3:09 with shopping bags. I watched my mother read the wristband upside down. I watched her decide not to touch it. And then, friends, she went. Not to sorry, to the 4 lanes of the family highway, one after another, fluid as muscle memory. Lane 1, minimize. She was fine. Athena. She wandered. Mall people scoop them up in minutes. That's their whole job. Lane 2, discredit the record. Those security people write everything down dramatic for liability. Everybody knows that. 10 minutes? Maybe 20. Tops. The log says 2 hours, I said. The log isn't your enemy, Mom. It's just a clock. Lane 3, the counter grievance. And this is the one I'll hear in my sleep. Do you have any idea how hard Cooper's Lego was to find? I had 1 afternoon to get that whole list done. There it was. Not denial. Priorities. Said out loud, on the record. In her own kitchen. My daughter had been competing that day, and she'd lost. The way she was always going to lose. To a gift list. And Lane 4, right on schedule as the screen door banged and Vanessa walked in mid-sentence like she'd been paged. The character verdict. You're doing what? Showing Mom mall paperwork? God, Athena. Stop overreacting. I looked at the 2 of them arranging themselves shoulder to shoulder, the complete set. And I picked up my report and my wristband, and I said, Thank you. This has been very clarifying, which, in accountant, is a declaration of war. Pause with me here, because at this point I had timestamps, and my family had a slogan. Some of you have lived this exact math, where being right costs more than being quiet. Stay with me. The phone call I made that night is the reason this story exists. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now, because you'll want to be here for what happened at midnight. Here's what happened in the 4 days between that kitchen and my phone call, and if you've lived in a family like mine, you can recite it with me. The narrative machine spun up. Vanessa got to the group chat before I got to my driveway. By dinner time, the official story had a shape. Mall rent-a-cops pad their logs, her phrase, repeated by 2 aunts within the hour like it was case law. By the next morning, it had a moral. Family handles, family, privately. And by the weekend, it had a villain. And the villain was not the woman who lost a toddler for 2 hours. Aunt Carla called me, sweet voice, knife inside, to say she was sure it was all a misunderstanding and that I shouldn't go making it a thing. There's that phrase again. Making it a thing. In my family, the thing was never the thing. Talking about the thing was the thing. A 3-year-old alone by the exit doors of a shopping mall. Not a thing. Her mother obtaining a public record about it. A thing. I started noticing I'd been assigned a new character. For 30 years I'd been the strong one, the safe pair of hands. 4 days of asking documented questions, and the chat had quietly recast me, high-strung tax season Athena, going through something. My reliability had never been a credential, it turns out. It was a costume they'd dressed me in, and the moment I stopped playing the part, they didn't argue with my evidence. They just recast the role. Nobody in that chat asked one question about Lily. I checked. I scrolled back through 4 days of messages about loyalty and family and drama, and my daughter's name appeared exactly nowhere. That, more than anything, is what hardened the next decision. They weren't defending my mother from a lie. They were defending the ranking from the truth. I'm going to give my mother 1 paragraph of fairness now, not because she asked for it, but because the story is dishonest without it. Aunt Carla, mid-lecture, let something slip that week. You girls don't know what your mother carried. And the thing is, I do know. I know it in pieces Mom never assembled for us herself. Sandra was the oldest of 5, with a mother sick in bed more years than not. She was cooking for the household at 12. She walked her brothers to school, signed their permission slips, worked the register at a pharmacy at 16 so her youngest brother could eventually go to college. The brother whose graduation photo hung in my grandmother's hallway framed, while my mother's high school diploma lived in a drawer. Her own mother used to say it to her. The exact words, I've heard the aunts quoted at funerals like a blessing. Sandra's the strong one. And at my great-grandmother's funeral, they tell me, everybody thanked the brother for the eulogy. Nobody thanked the woman who'd emptied the bedpans. So yes, I understand where my mother learned the rules. Love, in the house she grew up in, was not payment for service. Service was invisible. Love flowed toward whoever demanded it. Loudest, most often, with the most tears. Vanessa demands. I invoice quietly and eat the loss. My mother didn't invent that economy. She was born into it, got skinned by it. And then, this is the part understanding doesn't fix. She rebuilt it in her own house, brick by brick, with her own daughters, and handed the bill to mine. Understanding the ledger she inherited doesn't zero out the one she handed me. It just tells me the debt is 3 generations old. Somebody had to refuse to carry it forward. Apparently, it was going to be the accountant. That Sunday night, I did what I do best. I took inventory. Not of grievances, of assets. Column 1. What did they control? The chat. The chorus. The story at Thanksgiving. 30 years of my reputation, apparently on lease. Column 2. What did I control? I sat with my pen over the notebook and almost laughed at how long the list was once I actually wrote it down. Access to my daughter. 100% mine and Dan's, no court, no committee, no vote required. The record, already made, by strangers with no stake, sitting in a mall office and a police file whether my family liked it or not. And the invisible payroll, 9 tax returns a year, holiday hosting, the appointment shuttle, the fixer services, every one of them mine to simply stop providing. My friend Priya, who's been my desk neighbor through 2 tax seasons and 1 existential crisis, put it in 1 sentence over lunch that Monday when I showed her the report. You've been running a charity and calling it a family, A, and charities get audited. So I drafted the decision the way I'd draft an engagement letter, because format is how I stay calm. Effective immediately. No unsupervised access to Lily. Permanently. Not as punishment, but as policy. The same policy any parent applies to anyone who loses their kid for 2 hours and calls the log a lie. Visits welcome, supervised, in my home. And one open item remained, the one that made my hands cold. The police report still listed the incident with a guardian's account and no statement from the parent. The record was true, but incomplete. Incomplete records get amended by whoever bothers to show up. My family's entire history was built on nobody bothering to show up to the record. I decided to bother. Tuesday evening, Lily asleep. Dan sitting beside me at the kitchen table because I asked him to be there, and he came. I want that noted. He came. I dialed the non-emergency line and asked for Officer Reyes, the name from the report. He called back within the hour. I put it on speaker, set my notebook in front of me, and gave my statement in the order I'd written it. I am the child's mother. I did not authorize anyone to leave her unattended, anywhere, for any length of time. The guardian's account of a brief wandering does not match the security log, which I have obtained. I'd like the record to reflect the parent's statement. Reyes was kind and procedural at once, a combination I have a new respect for. He took it all down. He told me what I already suspected. No charges were being pursued. First documented incident. Child unharmed. But the report would carry my statement now. Attached. Permanent. And then he said the sentence that set off everything after. With an unattended child this young, ma'am, there's a standard cross-report to Child Services. They may reach out to the grandmother for an assessment, and I'll be contacting her tonight to complete the file. I said I understood. I said thank you. I hung up and sat in my quiet kitchen, and Dan reached over and squeezed my wrist, right where a yellow band would go. It took 11 minutes. 30 years of auditioning for a family that graded me invisible. And the honest version of April 13th entered the public record in 11 minutes, in my own voice, at my own kitchen table. I felt the floor of my old life give way, and under it, to my surprise, there was another floor. It held. The first call came at 7:41. Mom. I watched it ring out against the kitchen tile. 7:44, Vanessa. 7:45, Vanessa. 7:47, Mom. Vanessa. Mom. In a braid. I turned the phone face down, and Dan and I did bath time, and I read the Panda book twice with my daughter's damp head on my arm, and gave that half hour the full attention my family believes I owe to them. When I finally flipped the phone over at 11:30, the lock screen looked like a scoreboard. 68 missed calls. I counted the breakdown later because of course I did. 31 from Mom, 22 from Vanessa, 9 from Aunt Carla, 6 from Uncle Pete, and a number I didn't know. 68. My mother had not called me 68 times cumulatively in the previous decade. I scrolled through the voicemails like core samples, each one drilled from a different layer of the family. First layer. Honey thick. Call me back, sweetheart. There's been some silly mix-up with a police officer. Second layer. Brisk. Athena. This has gone far enough. Third layer. Vanessa. No greeting. You called the cops on your own mother. Who does that? Fourth layer. My mother again. And this voice I'd never heard aimed at me. Flat. Cold. Bookkeeping of her own. I hope you're proud of yourself. You're tearing this family apart. I sat there doing the translation work I'd been doing all my life a half second too late. A child alone by the exit doors. 0 calls. Her mother's statement in a file. 68. You could not ask for a cleaner audit of what this family counts as an emergency. I put the phone on the charger, face down. Headlights swept across the living room curtains. It was 11:58. They came in 2 cars. I watched through the curtain gap as the doors opened almost in sync. My mother, Vanessa, Aunt Carla, Uncle Pete, 4 of them, coats over pajamas, marching up my walk at midnight like a homeowners association of the apocalypse. The bell rang. then knuckles, then the bell again. Dan was already halfway down the stairs, jaw set, and I love him for the next thing he said, and for how he said it. Want me to send them home? And I heard myself answer in a voice that surprised us both. It was so level. No, this one's mine. I've been rehearsing for it my whole life. I just didn't know the venue. I checked the monitor, Lily asleep, Panda in a headlock, and I turned on the porch light and opened the front door. I did not open the storm door at first, and I did not step aside, and both of those choices were the whole speech, really. Everything after was footnotes. 4 faces on my porch, lit yellow. My mother in front, arms crossed, Vanessa at her shoulder vibrating like a struck fence wire, Carla holding a Tupperware. I never found out what was in it. There's a version of this family where you bring a casserole to an ambush, and Pete at the back looking like a man who'd been drafted at gunpoint from his recliner. It was cold for May. I stood in the doorway of the house I pay for, in my robe, and let the silence do its work. Because here's something accountants and nurses and teachers all know. The person who speaks first at a reckoning is usually the one who's afraid. My mother spoke first. "Athena," she said, "you are going to fix this tomorrow." What followed was a group presentation. They'd clearly talked strategy in the cars. Vanessa opened, prosecutor voice. "You're going to call that officer in the morning and withdraw whatever statement you made, and then you're going to call the mall and tell them you overreacted. And this all goes away." Aunt Carla took the second movement, the warm one, Tupperware extended like a sacrament. "Sweetheart, families don't do paperwork on each other. Thanksgiving is 5 months out. Don't let one bad afternoon become the thing that splits us." Pete studied my porch boards like they owed him money, and then my mother stepped forward and delivered the closing offer, and I have to hand it to her. It was honest. More honest than anything she'd said all month. "Call them tomorrow," she said. "Tell them you spoke in anger, that the security people exaggerated and it was all a misunderstanding. Do that, and we will never speak of this again. I promise. Clean slate." There it was, itemized at last, on my own porch, the price of belonging to my family. 1 retraction. The truth of April 13th, my daughter's 2 hours, formally reclassified as her mother's overreaction, signed by me, the reliable one, whose signature makes things official. That's what they'd driven over at midnight to collect. Not an apology, a signature. And here's what I felt, standing there in the cold in my robe, and I swear this on my kid. Not rage, recognition. 30 years of family membership, and I was finally being shown the invoice, and it was almost a relief to see the number written down. They were offering me my old job back. All I had to do was notarize a lie about my own child. The porch went quiet. It was my turn. I let them finish. Every sentence, every lane of the highway, all the way to the end. 30 years of letting my family take up all the space in the room, deployed one last time, on purpose, because I wanted no one to be able to say I hadn't heard the offer. Then I gave my report, and I gave it the way I give every report. Slowly, in order, without raising my voice once. "No," I said. "The statement stands. Every line of it is true, and it has timestamps, and I don't retract true things. That's the whole reason this family is nervous about me right now." I let that sit. Then item 2. The unsupervised babysitting is over. Permanently. Not as a punishment, Mom. As policy. The same policy I'd apply to a daycare, a sitter, a stranger. Anyone on earth who lost my daughter for 2 hours and then called the clock a liar. You can see Lily, at my house, with me in the room, whenever she wants to see you. That door isn't locked. It just has a working latch now, and I'm the one who decides when it opens. Vanessa started to talk, and I did something I have never once done in my life. I kept going, and my volume didn't change, and somehow that's what shut it down. "And item 3? I said, looking only at my mother now. "You keep telling everyone she was fine. So I want to tell you the only eyewitness account I have. For a month, My 3-year-old has been whispering the same thing to a stuffed panda in the dark. Grandma went away. She's 3, Mom. That's the entire story as she can tell it. Grandma went away, and a stranger in a uniform gave her a bracelet and a metal chair, and the loudspeaker said her description out loud every 15 minutes, and she asked that stranger for Mama until Mama's mother finished the gift list. The porch had gone very still. Aunt Carla was looking into her Tupperware. Pete had stopped auditing the floorboards. And I said the last part gently, because it was the part I'd finally understood about myself. I'm not asking anyone here to say sorry anymore. I spent 30 years billing this family in a currency you don't carry. As of tonight, the account's closed. For a moment, nobody moved, and I watched something happen on my mother's face that I'd been waiting for since the 3rd grade. The warmth left it. Not anger. Anger is warm. This was the other thing, the true thing underneath. And when she finally spoke, her voice was flat and clear, and my mother, for the first time in my life, told me the truth. You want to know what happened at that mall? She said. Nothing. Nothing happened. Nobody watched me either, Athena. Not one day of my life, and I turned out fine. We looked after ourselves. We didn't cry to strangers in uniforms. And we did not. Her voice went to iron. We do not file paperwork on family. There it was. The whole creed, the operating system, 3 generations of it, said out loud on my porch at midnight. Kids who are watched are the ones somebody's paying attention to. Kids like her, and kids like Lily, the invoiced children, the strong ones' kids. Get metal chairs and get told they're fine, because that's what fine means in this family. Unattended. And then the sentence she'd brought in the car, the one they'd all ratified on the drive over. Withdraw it, she said. Or don't come to Thanksgiving. Don't call. We'll be a smaller family, and that will be your doing. I looked at my mother, really looked, the way you look at a closing balance, and I felt the thing I'd been dreading for a month simply arrive, and it felt less like breaking and more like a total finally reconciling. She was 3, I said. She was alone for 2 hours. She was not fine. And Mom, neither were you. That's the whole story, isn't it? Somebody left you in the chair 50 years ago, and instead of burning that chair, you saved it for my daughter. My mother's chin came up. Vanessa said my name like a slammed drawer, and I said, then we won't be at Thanksgiving. And I closed the door. Slowly. No slam. The latch clicked, a small clean sound like a ledger shutting. Then I stood with my back against the wood, in my dark living room, and slid down it to the floor, and Dan sat down next to me on the tile and held my hand while the cars started up outside, one, then the other, and drove my old life away. Here's the part the movies get wrong, so let me give you the accurate version. Nobody got arrested. Nobody was ever going to get arrested, and I never wanted that. A week later, a woman from Child Services called me. Calm, kind, 20 minutes. And then, I'm told, visited my mother for an assessment. First documented incident, child unharmed, access already restricted by the parent. File reviewed, file closed. My family called this exoneration. It wasn't. It was the system noting, in its flat institutional voice, that the child was safe now because her mother had made her safe. The report stayed. That's all I'd wanted. Not handcuffs, a record. Because a record is just a family memory that can't be edited by whoever talks loudest at Thanksgiving, and an unedited memory was the one thing my family had never once allowed. The exile came on schedule, uninvited from the 4th of July at Carla's. Vanessa handled the announcement. By group text I was still somehow on, a small administrative cruelty I almost admired. The chat itself went quiet toward me, that particular family quiet that's louder than shouting. My mother told her side to everyone with a landline. Athena called the police on me over 10 minutes at a mall. Half the family believed her, because believing her cost nothing, and believing me cost the ranking. I grieved that for a while. I won't pretend I didn't. You can grieve people who are still alive. It's the most common grief there is. But here's what I noticed by August. My Sundays were quiet. Nobody's appointments on my calendar. Nobody's crisis at my dinner table. The charity had closed, and the silence where the obligation used to be turned out to be the sound of my own house. And then spring came back around, as it does, and with it the funniest, saddest, most perfect piece of evidence I could never have planted. Tax season. For the first time in 9 years, I did 4 returns instead of 13. Mine, Dan's business paperwork, Priya's mom's, and one for a retired client I love. Nobody in my family asked me, of course. Asking would have meant speaking to me. Word still travels through Uncle Pete, though. Pete, who'd started calling every few weeks, awkward and loyal, the one juror who'd apparently gone home from my porch and thought about it. And through Pete I learned that my mother and Vanessa took their paperwork to one of those strip mall preparers with the inflatable wavy guy out front and paid $410 and got dinged on a credit they didn't know to claim because the person who knew to claim it was no longer complimentary. $410. I want to be honest about what I felt when I heard that number, because this channel is not about pretending to be a saint. I laughed. Alone in my car for a good while, the kind of laugh with a crack in the middle of it. 30 years of free labor, invisible right up until the moment it stopped, and the first thing my family ever truly registered about my absence had a $sign on it. Turns out I was never invisible. I was just complimentary. There's a difference, and the difference showed up on their receipt. My mother reportedly told the aunts the preparer was a crook. Nobody said my name. They didn't have to. Some acknowledgments only ever arrive as an expense line, and I've decided that counts. In this family, it's the most fluent language we have. I should tell you about the 2 overtures, because endings in real families are not doors slamming. They're doors ajar at strange angles. Vanessa texted me in September. No apology, no mention of the porch. Just, hey, quick question about the education credit, Form 8863. Do you have 5 minutes? I read it 3 times to make sure it was real, and then I typed back, kindly, the truest sentence I know. I'm not doing family taxes anymore, but any preparer can help with that one. She never replied, and my mother left one voicemail in October that I've kept and listened to more times than I'll admit. I'm sorry, she said, that you felt Lily was in danger. And I want to see my granddaughter. Listen to the engineering on that apology. Sorry that I felt. A sorry with no subject, no verb that lands on her. An apology built the way she builds everything, with the cost billed to someone else's account. But the second sentence was real, and the offer had always been real, so I called back. She didn't pick up, which I understand. Landing on my voicemail let us both survive it. And I said, the door's open, Mom. My house. Me present. Whenever Lily wants. That's the whole latch. In late October, she came. Sat upright on a park bench beside me for 40 minutes with a coat buttoned to the chin, watched Lily conquer the slide, said almost nothing. And then, as we were leaving, quietly, not really to me, she got big. That's all. Not sorry. Not I was wrong. Just, she got big. One true human sentence from inside the fortress, and I've chosen to keep it because you take the card. It's not redemption. It's a person, visible for 1 second through the creed. It was the most of my mother I'd seen in years. It's been a year now since that midnight on my porch, and I want to leave you inside the life the ledger bought, because the whole point of an audit is what you build after it. Last June, 6 weeks after the door clicked shut, Lily turned 4. Backyard party, 5 kids, Dan on the grill, a panda cake I decorated myself at 11 p.m. like a lunatic. And my daughter stood on a lawn chair and announced her birthday wish to the whole yard at full volume, twice, and got exactly what she yelled for. Write that down as the real ending. In this house, the quietest person doesn't have to earn the microphone, but she's allowed to use it loudly. Nobody here is the strong one. We take turns. The fears faded the way the counselor at her preschool said they would. Not erased, retrained. We practiced what she calls the lost plan, made it a game for real this time. If you can't find Mama, you stand still. You yell. You find a person in a uniform, and you never, ever keep it secret. She recited it in the cereal aisle once, apropos of nothing, loud enough for 3 aisles to hear. A woman peered around the end cap, and I just nodded like we were rehearsing a play. We were. Last month we walked past a store loudspeaker mid-announcement, and Lily squeezed my hand and kept walking, chattering about pandas, and I looked straight ahead and let the moment stay light. And then I sat in the car afterward feeling like I'd won an award there's no ceremony for. The yellow wristband is still in my filing cabinet, in the folder with her birth certificate. Dan asked once if keeping it was morbid. It's not there for anger. Every ledger keeps its source documents. That band is the original entry, the day this family's books finally got honest. Thanksgiving happened, by the way, at my table. Dan, Lily, Priya, and her 2 kids, and Uncle Pete, who showed up unannounced with a pecan pie and his recliner posture and said, "Don't make it a thing," which, from Pete, meant I choose you. And we didn't make it a thing, and he's been at my table every holiday since. 1 juror was enough. My mother still calls me the strong one, to the aunts, to anyone still taking her calls. She's right, in a way she will never once mean. Strong was never free. It was just unbilled. Now it's neither. Lily sees her grandmother a few times a year, park benches and porch visits, always with me in the room, and it is stiff and small and honest, which beats warm and large and false by a margin I can now calculate exactly. And me, I'm still the reliable one. That never changes. It was never the problem. I'm reliable for my daughter, my husband, my own clients, my own table. The only thing I retired was the free labor of being invisible. Last week, Lily asked me, out of nowhere, in the way of almost 5-year-olds, "Mama, am I the strong one?" And I put down the dish towel and gave her the amended family definition, the one I'm sending forward 3 generations. "You're the loved one," I said. "Strong is just something loved people get to be." She considered it, nodded, and demanded a snack. Loudly. She got it. Here's what a yellow paper wristband and 68 missed calls taught me, and I'll leave it with you in 1 sentence. In some families, love is a ledger where the loudest entries get paid first. And the day you stop working for free isn't the day you become the villain. It's the day the books finally show what you were worth the whole time. That's my story. 2 hours, 1 yellow wristband, 68 missed calls, and a door I closed quietly. If you're the reliable one in your family, hear me. Your presence should never cost less than your absence. Check on the quiet kids, and the quiet grown-ups too. Share this with someone who needs it. Drop a comment below, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.